Hello, everybody. This is Barry Johnson. Welcome back to another edition of Studio Talk. I'm here to tell you, DSP for low latency recording is freaking dead. Let's talk about it. Okay. So this conversation has been happening for a very long time. Okay, I've recently done a lot of videos on Apple's M1 and M1 Pro processors in the 14-inch as well as the 16-inch and in the M1 on the MacBook Air. And these computers, as far as audio is concerned, are incredibly powerful. I mean, incredibly powerful. When I can run hundreds of tracks, all with plugins on them, all with a buffer of 32, okay, and have zero problems, I can record it anytime I want. Why in the world would I need DSP any longer? Help me understand that. Why would anybody need that anymore? You simply don't, okay? Let's talk about why people use DSP in the first place. Of course, DSP started with Avid and Pro Tools, or actually DigiDesign and Pro Tools, all right? With their mix system originally, and then their HD, TDM, and now on to their HDX, okay? So the reason, for the most part, we started doing it initially is because we needed to have zero latency monitoring, or the equivalent of it. I think you all know at this point there's no really true such thing as zero, but it's close enough to where these ears aren't going to notice the difference, or yours either, okay? So you got into doing that. So that was the first thing. Then ultimately, computers weren't powerful enough to run the mixer, the buses, all of that stuff. So that's when Avid started putting all of that on their DSP chips. So if you wanted to be able to run massive sessions and never have to worry about the power of your computer ever again, all you had to do was go out and spend $15,000, $20,000 on a TDM system. 15, 20 grand. That's a lot of money. Okay. So anyway, so that's what got you into being able to record with no latency. Then next comes up UAD. Universal Audio are probably the next to come out with DSP-based system. And what they came out with initially was their UAD 1 cards. And the reason you needed to buy their DSP cards is because computers at the time were simply not powerful enough to run all of those plugins. It wasn't a copy protection initially because people hadn't really got into seriously stealing these things or downloading them or whatever, these pirated copies. That really wasn't happening that much at that point. So they need you to be able to run their plugins. You needed to use their DSP. Now, when they came out, their plugins were untouchable. They simply were untouchable and remained so for many years. They have made some of the very best plugins that were offered out there to anybody who ever wanted to use them, okay? Outstanding. And so those that wanted to work outside of Pro Tools, HD, TDM, or HDX, you got into UAD's architecture with their Apollo series, then going on to their Twins and Solos and things like that after the fact, where they put the DSP chips in their analog to digital conversion and incorporated that all into one box. So now you've got those type of boxes out there that enable you to do what? Not only run Universal Audio's plugins, but two, to be able to record at the equivalent of zero latency through their secondary GUI, their GUI, their mixer window where you do all of that, where you can actually record through these while you're recording, and you can also apply them to tape, as you say, all right? And so that's what happened with Universal Audio. And then later on, as people started to be able to develop maybe not as high quality DSP plugins, but be able to plug in or get some DSP chips or whatever into their interfaces, many other interface manufacturers started to incorporate some minor DSP ability for tracking purposes on the way in, so that you could use their secondary GUI and be able to record with no latency as well as through certain plugins. So that has really started to develop and blossom up over the last 5 to 7 years. Okay, so now that I've given a basic history and a basic understanding of where DSP started, why people used it, how it was utilized, and the various companies that adopted it, the question is today, do you or I ever need DSP again? And my answer is no. No, we no longer need DSP for any reason. There's always going to be a handful of people out there that do this that will have a justifiable reason to do so. There always will be those. I'm talking about for the majority of people sitting at home in a project studio, even a high-end home project studio. You simply no longer need DSP. Had I known that, okay, I would have never bought that carbon interface back over there. Okay, I recently bought that for $4,000, all right? And so that was before I started getting into these M1 computers, especially the M1 Pro. And now that I've seen the power of these computers and done all of the analysis on it, there's just no way. I cannot imagine a situation where anybody requires DSP any longer for low latency. You can simply set your buffer at your DAW's lowest buffer setting and forget it even exists anymore and start recording, okay? And so that is powerful, powerful, powerful. When you look at the specs on AMD's new Ryzen 9, I think it's called, that thing is incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. So if you're on Windows, you've got that architecture to look for. If you're on PC, or if you're on Mac, then you've got the M1, M1 Pro, and M1 Max. And that's only going to get better and better and better. So I feel like today I can't possibly see a need for DSP. So why in the world would people want to invest in UAD's architecture if I don't need it for low latency monitoring? Well, in my opinion, the compelling argument for UAD's plugins ended 5 or 6 years ago, okay? Some other manufacturers have come up like Brainworks / Plugin Alliance, Softtube, and so many others out there just making Slate Digital. I mean, there's just so many out there that are making phenomenal plugins that compete head-to-head with many, if not most, of UAD's plugins. UAD still has some plugins that are the top of the line, that are still better and unbeatable by anybody else. But is it worth it investing all of that money into their hardware? That's where the issue. My issue is not with UAD's plugins because I still think they have a long life ahead of them, but I don't believe that people will continue once they realize the power of these new computers. I honestly just don't think they're going to feel the need to purchase those plugins for the sake of low latency monitoring. So now we're back to square one, where the only reason you would buy their hardware is to be able to run their plugins. And their plugins are outrageously expensive. Even when they're on sale, they're still outrageously expensive compared to the competition. So the fact that DSP is dead, in my opinion, means companies like UAD and Avid must change their business model. They've got to change how they operate, in my opinion. Now, I'm fans of UAD. I like UAD as a company. I like their plugins. I think they make great interfaces. This is not about that. This is about where you're most wisest to spend your money. And there's no way in the world today I would recommend anything UAD to anybody for any reason. There's just no way in the world I would recommend that. Now, if they came out a way to do their plugins and be able to do those in the native world somehow by still maintaining some type of hardware dongle for copy protection, because that's one of their main motivations for doing that, then yes, I would recommend their plugins because they make great plugins, fantastic plugins. And you, of course, can decide whether or not they warrant the cost in your studio or not. Some of them definitely warrant the price they ask for them. They do. They make some fantastic plugins. But as far as the need for DSP to do that, it's not needed. If you're investing in UAD architecture today, especially for processing their plugins, understand that you are paying a premium to do so, and not let alone doing with Avid, okay? When you do it with Avid, you buy an HDX card, where outrageously expensive. You know, you'd be better off going buying an M1 Max or M1 Pro and forego that HDX card. You're going to get more processing power, more ability to do what you need to do. So think about it. If you agree with me, let me know below. If you disagree with me, let me know below. But until next time, I hope you hit that like button, that subscribe button, and notification bell, and come back and watch some videos later. Till then, have a great day.